A very good evening and very warm welcome to all the respected dignitaries present over here. Am I audible, first of all? Thank you very much for the responses. Thank you very much for the responses. A very good evening and very warm welcome to the next scientific session of our research methodology workshop certificate course. I welcome all the dignitaries, Dr. Asit Panja sir, Professor Surendra Ved Pathak sir, and all other from IAS Institute who are hosting this program, and dear participants. Without taking much time, I would like to proceed for the scientific session. We are having our talk of today's session by Dr. Asit Panja sir on basic principles of Ayurveda, Panchmahabhuta Siddhanta, Loka, Samya, and Samanya Vishesh Siddhanta. Sir is currently working as associate professor in the Department of Maulik Siddhanta, NIA. He is in charge of Ayurveda Manuscriptology Department, nodal agency of Ministry of Ayush, which is situated in NIA Institute itself. He is also in charge of audiovisual repository of history of Ayurveda. He is coordinator of revitalization, folklore, and local health traditions. Sir has previously worked as consultant in TCI unit WHO headquarters Geneva for 1 year. Sir has penned more than 20 books, 24 ebooks, and edited 6 manuscripts. He is having to his pen as author credit more than 150 articles published in various national and international journals. He is recipient of many of Pandit Lakshmi Ram Society has also felicitated in 2011 by Vishisht Vaidya Samman. He is also recipient of Young Scientist Award by CCRS, Ministry of Ayush. Without Sir, please. I again request Asit Panja sir to kindly please proceed with the session.
Namaste. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Good evening, all of you. Thank you, organizer, for giving me the opportunity to share with some views regarding the principles related to research. Ved Pathak sir and other faculty members and all dear friends. Okay, I want to share. Is it now visible? Is this slide visible, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
Yes, sir, visible here.
Sound is okay?
Yes, sir.
But some the wind is coming in front. So let's start with the salutation to Lord Dhanvantari for blessings, and also Charak, Agnivesh, Atreya, and other Maharshis for their blessings in the evening. So in the total presentations, we will focus on some 10 points. That is the background of principles, why the old things research is needed for a propagation of the current research, that is background. Another is the view of Nobel laureates told about the approach of research in four perspectives. Then the sanctity of Ayurveda as a knowledge system. Then we will come how the principles comes, Siddhanta, how Siddhanta comes, then method of developing principles, then means of justification of principles. After that, we will discuss on certain point regarding the scientific methods of research. Then I will focus on the three given topic, that is Panchmahabhuta, its relations, different angles and relations with the research. Then Loka Purusha Samya and use of Loka Purusha Samya in the research perspective. Then Samanya Vishesh, then we will conclude this session. So what is going on? This tools is bothering me. Coming. How it is coming? Once again, I am sharing. Okay. So as per Kalidasa says, what is the need of study the old things? Whether there is any necessity to study the old things, that is now we are researching on the principles and what is the need of principle in the current perspective. So let's start with the Kalidasa's preaching. Kalidasa says, Purana Mityam eva na sadhu sarvam na chopi kavyam navamitta vadyam santa parikshantarat bhajante muda pratya pradnetu buddhi. Means the all things which are old should not necessarily be true, and all things which are new should not necessarily be without fault. To the wise men, both of them should be acceptable if only that stands to establish. So the wise person always should do the research before accepting any truth, before accepting anything as a truth. So before establishment, there must be some kind of research. But unwise, however, gets swayed by the current of opinion. That is the need of studying the old things and as well as new things. So new things and old things both are liable to be or subjected to the research. Next. From the Indian perspective, from the perspective of Indian Indian philosopher, the Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan, our second president of India, says that if the science does not advance in research, it goes stagnant and dies. Researchers should do their utmost to keep the flame burning brighter and yet brighter as generation pass. So, from the philosophical perspective also, for any philosophical speculation, it requires some kind of research, introspection to find out the truth and relation of those truth with the current underlying thoughts process of the era. So our Ayurveda principles and Ayurveda thought process also liable to subjected to the evaluate in the current perspective. Then a chemist is Richard Ernest, who got the Nobel Prize in 1991. She says that science and technology alone cannot solve the problem of new millennium. We need additional guidelines for our actions, for the selection of our research projects and research goals. The guideline have to do with ethics, the philosophy, and the faith. The focus point is these guidelines which guides you for the action to solve the problem of the new millennium in the form of research, we require the ethics, the philosophy, and the faith. And in our principles, in Ayurveda principles, we have everywhere ethics with philosophical lead and with faith. So that is a concept, the concept which are written in our text, that is came out also from a Nobel laureates who got the Nobel Prize in chemistry. So from the perspective of chemistry also, the principles is important, and that principle should be framed with the ethics, philosophy, and the faith. From the perspective of physicists, if we think what is research, a physicist says, that is Charles Towne, who got the Nobel Prize in 1964. He says that I look the science and religion as both working on the same problem. Both are working for resolving the problem of the universe. Mainly the understanding of what our universe and the life are all about. They will meet and join in a close, neat way. But I do not think it is practical to keep the scientific and spiritual culture separate. That means scientific and spiritual culture should run simultaneously to solve the problem of the universe. That is the dealing point of Ayurveda. Ayurveda deals with the both things, the scientific aspect and the spiritual culture, both. So that is reflected the inner tune also reflected from a writing of the physicist. From the perspective of a psychoanalyst, if we consider what is research, that before going to intervene in any act, our subconscious intuition comes into play and try to establish a probable solution. And our duty is to find out the reality or consequences of that intuitions in logical reasoning. Which other word called research. Anna Freud. You know Anna Freud? Anna Freud is the daughter of Sigmund Freud. Anna Freud also worked on psychoanalysis. So from the psychoanalysis perspective also, before going to research, subconscious mind plays some role. The subconscious intuition in the later phase developed as a point of focusing point, that is our goal. And our duty is to find out the reality and consequences of that intuitions. That is the only goal with a logical reasoning. So if you see that matter also reflected in the Indian contemporary text like Siva Puran, that karma vyavacheda, karma vyaparo, and karma sadhanartha, yukti and karma saili should be thought before the karma. Yukti and karma saili should be thought before the karma. So before going to the karma, we required to work on this karma vyavacheda, karma vyapar, and karma sadhana. So what we are going to do with the principles, in the principle also we will apply these all methods from the all perspective, from the perspective of philosophy, perspective of chemist, perspective of physicist, perspective of psychoanalyst also. And from the social scientist, in Mahabharata also, it is very difficult. Mahabharata also, it says that we are approaching to the truth. We are not going to reach absolute truth because the life is dynamic and world is also getting changed in every moment. So all are dynamic. So in the dynamic plane, it is very difficult to say what righteousness is. It is not easy to indicate it. No one in the discoursing upon the righteousness can indicate it accurately. So that is why you see one person get Nobel Prize on a certain point some 10 years back, and recently also that point is change in the opposite directions, and a new thought came out. Like previously it was thought as that the acid peptic indigestion is the main sole cause of gastric ulcer or peptic ulcer. Now it is revealed that the H. pylori bacteria is the causative factor of the ulcers in the intestine. So both got the award, but that means there is a dynamicity in the life. So in this context, we have to analyze, before going to the principles, we have to analyze this point. So last point is perspective of a physician, how physician think research, what is research. Now we find ourselves in a universe that breeds life and possesses that very particular properties. The more deeply one penetrate, the more remarkable and subtle the fitness of the universe for life appears. The fitness of the universe for life appears more subtly, more deeply we penetrate. That means more paramanu tattva vivechanam we will do, we will get that level of understanding very quickly, very properly, and very disseminated. We can understand. So from the physician perspective also, the principle, they are supporting to develop our principles. Now coming to the next point, that whether Ayurveda is a belief system and knowledge system, because we are going to discuss on the principles. So in the principles, we have three tier of framework. One is tattva, that is called principle, then theory, that is shastra, and the vyavahara and the practice. We will talk on the tattva today, because text says that tattva bodha harsha jananam. Understanding the principles is major cause for getting the harsha. Tools for validation is also available in Ayurveda. First, in Ayurveda, there are three types of framework. Then tools of validations, that is pratyaksha, anumana, aptopadesh. Major three tools: direct perception, inference, and authority. Then we have pariksha, that is investigations, as a means of distinguish between what is real and what is unreal. So we have two different methods. Then tools of interpretation, tarka is there. So everything what we say as a principle and we conceive as a principle, then we imply as a principle in the everyday practical life, all has these three kinds of framework, like tire, then validation process, then pariksha. In this way, we can prove as Ayurveda as a knowledge system. Now coming to the principles. What is principle? A principle is a basic generalization that is accepted as true, that can be used as a basis for reasoning or a conduct. If we are going to do something, or if you are framing any reasoning, that will be a basis, and that basis will be in the form of generalization. That is called a principle. Principle is a generalization that is accepted as true, and that can be used as a basis for reasoning of a conduct. The fundamental reason or logic behind something is called principle. The fundamental logic behind any incidents or happening is called principle. And in our text, principle is called that the Siddhanta. And Siddhanta is the final decision led by the scholars or the group of scholars, justifying with the establishment of cause-effect relationship through a series of experiments. It is conducted by a series of experiments, and the purpose of these experiments is to establish the cause-effect relationships. That is the Parikshakai Bhovita Pariksha Hetur Vishya Sadhita Sthapate Nirnaya. Now we will see how the establishment process usually conducted in the form of research. So this is the principles, and we have three different tier. First is Parikshakai Bhovita Pariksha. multiple examiner and multicentric or multifaceted examinations. Then justification with the hetu vishesh sadhayitva. Then sthapate nirnayaha means draw a logical conclusions. First, going to the parikshakai bahuvida pariksha. What are the facet of establishing the principles? The first one is pariksha. What are those pariksha? A pariksha is needed for two things. One is to prove what is existed. Suppose if you are finding anything causative factors in a certain disease, suppose you think that the urinary tract infection occurs due to either Pseudomonas or E. coli, then either you have to prove that E. coli is there and Pseudomonas is not there. So one to negate the existence, another is to prove the existed one. The perseverance of the existed one that is existed at which can be perceived. For proving that things, you read pariksha, required pariksha, and for negate the asat, required pariksha. And for this, you require these four faceted pariksha that is called the Chaturvida Pramanam. And tools of parikshas are Indriya, senses, that is, and manas, then buddhi, intellect, and which requires for what? Hypothesis, framing of objective, designing, experimentations, observation, analysis, and draw conclusion. For these, you require these three things: Indriya, Manas, and Buddhi. Mainly Buddhi is required for these things. So Pariksha ka Bhavavida Pariksha are two facets. It is having two facets, that is tools of Pariksha and category of Pariksha. Then coming to the next point is Hetu Vishya Sadhayitva. Hetu, what is Hetu? Hetu is also here justification tool, that is called Praman also. Praman mainly reasoning, justification of the events in accordance with the cause. Because our main aim is in the research, our main is aim to prove the cause effect relationship. How this can be done? This can be done. This is done by Panchavayam and the Praman. So Hetu Vishya Sadhayitva, then Stapate Nirnaya. In the Nirnaya, first we have a principles to be proved. Then after that, if there is no goal point, then there will be no establishment. So Nirnaya is done according to the situations and according to the previous the goal point, and also negate the alternative hypothesis that, and in some cases it's required, it is used for pratisthapana, means for rejecting. Now you see why I have discussed these things, because you see in the modern medicines, not modern science, there is a Aristotle methodology through which all kinds of scientific truth are proven. Here, first one, they starts with the observations, means questions, then the research topic area, then they frame the hypothesis, then they used to conduct the test with experiment, then they collect the data and analyze, then reports conclusion. This is the scientific methods what Aristotle proposed. So these, and now we will analyze and compare whether this is scientifically used in Ayurveda or not. You see, in Ayurveda, there is thought process to frame a principle. That first thought process starts. Then after that, there is multifaceted examinations, parikshakai bahuvida pariksha, multiple examiners in there. And after that, multi-centric trial, then unbiased observations, Hetu Vishya Sadhayitva, then justification in accordance with the cause effect relationship, then conclusion. You see, there is a simile, and in some context, we can say we have better, you can say, easily assimilable steps, more scientific, deeper assessment in the course of establishing principles. So principles is needed for framing and the tools of the scientific methods. The major tools is pramana. And you know all these varieties of principles. I am not going to detail the principles. Principles are these 4 types of principles. One is acceptable for all. Another is acceptable, postulated but developed by specific with a specific goal for a specific science. That is called Pratitanta Siddhanta. Then Adhikaran Siddhanta according to the context and according to the one focus point of descriptions. Then Abhyabhagam Siddhanta according to the time and other things. Now see the category from the clinical perspective. What are the principles? So principle is having a multifaceted dimensions and multi-way presence. Principle related to the maintenance of the health, basic principles or basic doctrine, which are applicable in all the principles. Then principle related to the functions of the drugs, principle related to the formulation, diagnosis, principle related to the treatment, then principle related to the understanding of the body, principle related to the dietary habits. Now coming to the point, that is Mahabhuta Siddhanta. You all know the Mahabhuta Siddhanta. I am not going to detail the what is Mahabhuta and how the Mahabhuta are there, how the Panchikaran process occurs. This is not a matter of discussion in the first year for the first year student. It is and the purview of Mahabhuta and how the Mahabhuta principle can be applicable in the clinical perspective or can be applicable in research perspective, that I am going to discuss. So you know there are Bhuta Gunas. Each and every Mahabhuta has specified guna. That is Thula, Sandra, Mandra, Sthira, Kotina, Guru, Gandha, Bahulam, Ishat, Kasayam, Prayaso, Madhuram, iti Parthivam. Similarly, each and every Bhuta gun is translated and manifested in a different way in the body. That is called Bhuta Karma. In the human body, the karma is manifested in this way, and in other, that will be manifested in different way. So this is Tavirya Vala Gaurava Sanghat Upachayakaram Vishistascha Adagati Swabhamiti Parthivam. So, but in the clinical perspective and research perspective, how we will going to use this all gunas and the karmas of Mahabhuta, that if there is pharmacological, if we want to decide any pharmacological function, precise pharmacological functions, then we require to assess the Bhuta Guna and Bhuta Karma. If the assessment of etiology and pathogenesis is in everywhere, there is pathogenesis of any disease, and in each and every pathogenesis, there is involvement of, but there is alteration of the gunas, the Mahabhutas in the body, or gunas of the Mahabhutas in the body. So how if there is a daha in the body, how the daha appear? Daha appear due to the vriddhi of any Mahabhuta or depletion of any other opposite Mahabhuta. That we have to assess. So assessment of the etiological factor or pathological factors will be required for the research purpose. Then unknown drug identifications. If we know in our text certain drugs, most of the drugs are identified and the guna karmas are mentioned. But there are certain plants, minerals, or herbs where those are not mentioned in our text. In that context, for those medicines, we require to develop a certain tools for assessing the guna karma. So in this context, we can use the Bhuta Guna, Bhuta Karma. Bhuta Guna and Bhuta Karma in the lab, and we can develop certain tools. So this is the first clinical use, first layer of use of Panchmahabhuta. Next point, you see, in the developmental process, in the Panchmahabhuta process, Paraspar Anugraha appears. Means Paraspar Anugrahanam. First Akash developed. After that, Akash pervade into the next Mahabhuta, then next Mahabhuta. So there is combinations occurs. But in the different physical conditions or different developmental process like development origin of any rus, if we want to assess, suppose a person are not able to taste the lavan ras, but person is having some kind of difficulties in assessing certain ras, or in some medicines, if there is a depletion of certain ras, then we can assess the Mahabhuti context component of the other combinations, so that we can generate that required rasas, or we can use those things. So for the developmental physiology, we require these Paraspara Anupravesh and the developmental knowledge of the rasas in the clinical perspective, like Gummi, Ambu, Guna Bahulad, Madhura. Yeah, this all you know. The assessment of cellular physiology, like in each and every cell, how the cell act and how the cell take the rasas from the essence of the rasas, which is circulated through the rasa dhatu as a rasa dhatu. So how the developmental physiology occurs, developmental physiology assessment can be done, and assessment of cellular physiology. In the both condition, we require the assessment of Mahabhuta, and in this context, we require these verses what I shows in the form of Paraspara Anupravesh and other things. Not going to detail. Then Mahabhuta in each and every dhatu. You know, disease occur either involvement of dosha dhatu or mal. So in the dosha dhatu and mal, we know that is developed out of the Mahabhuta. And if we assess each and every Mahabhuta in the dhatu, then we can practically elicit which Mahabhuti component is depleted in certain dhatu, certain clinical condition, and in that clinical conditions, how we will plan for the treatment. And in the research perspective also, if we want to go deeper research, then how we can design our research according to the assessment of Mahabhuta in the dhatu. See, in the Dhatu Kshaivriddhi, Susruta says, Tatra Swajoni Vardhana Upaya. Upayoga, sorry. Swajoni Vardhana Upayoga. If there is depletion of any dhatu, there is a principle that you should apply the medicines which is having the same kind of Mahabhuta, Swayoni, same Mahabhuta, and which will nourish the depleted dhatu. So, तत्र स्वयोनि द्रव्यानाम अवबोधार्थम धातु मल उपधातुषु श्लोका कथ्यन्ते। यद्यपि पंचमहाभूतानां वाच्य पाकोदिधा पुनः तथापि अपाम प्रधानत्वाद रसो सोम अविधीयते। अतिरिक्त गुणा रक्ते बन्ने मांसौ तु पार्थिवाः। So each and every Mahabhuta, he is telling, Dallan is telling which Mahabhuta is dominant in which dhatu. And according to the dominancy of Mahabhuta, you have to plan the which component is depleted or which component is getting Vriddha Avastha. So in that assessment, after that assessment, you have to apply the medicines. So Medasi, Ambu, Bhuvor, Asthini, Prithvi, Anila Tejasam, Majgi, Sukre, Chasomasya, Mutre, Ambu, Shikino, Udaha. So this is actually assessment of Mahabhuta in the Dhatu. So in research and clinical practice also, we have to apply this kind of assessment knowledge of the textual principles. What I told, that is, this principle is designed according to the all the process, that is Pariksha, Bhuvida Pariksha, everything, multi-centric trial, everything it is. So if we want to design, then you have to then assessment of Mahabhuta in food and its assimilation. This is a very most talked topic hai. Most of the people used to talk on this. That is, our body is developed with the basis of Mahabhuta, and as what we are taking, that is either medicine in the form of medicine or in the form of food. So both are also Panchabhautik. So our body is also Panchmahabhutik and food is also Panchmahabhutik. So if we want to keep ourselves healthy, so we have to assess the Panchmahabhutik compartment of body and Panchmahabhutik compartment of the food. So in addition to the assessment of the nutrition value, we have to assess the entire, we have to categorize the entire food stuff what we used to consume in regular basis, made be in the form of phala varga, made in the form of ambu varga, or in the goras varga, or in the madhu varga, or harita varga, or anything mamsa varga. We have to assess, we have to make a categorization that it is parthiva dominant, ambu, alpambu pradhan, agni. This is agni pradhan. So if we assess this kind of we develop this kind of assessment, it will be very easy for us to keep ourselves healthy and to prescribe in the patient. And in the research perspective also, what I want to say, that in research perspective also, we can take this kind of research, that if we suppose, for example, you can take potato or you can take flesh, mamsa. There are certain variety of mamsa preparation. One is mamsa rasa, another is kalita mamsa, another is mamsa which is brishta. That is called angara sullaka in kebab. Angara sullaka bhasascheti viruddhani. It says charak. So we consume food in a different way. One is component according to the Mahabhut, another is the process of making, whether what kind of food we are taking. It is boiled by only water, that is only toya samyoga, it is toya agni samyoga, or it is only agni samyoga. So process of seasoning along with the original Panchmahabhuti component, the resultant also we have to assess. So for the food, we have to assess, first one is the original component of the Mahabhuta, and next one is the resultant Mahabhuta after the seasoning, after the process. Then only we can assess the Mahabhuta in a practical way. Then that already I have discussed that each and every juncture of clinical practice, we require to assess the Mahabhuta, either depletion of the dosha, dhatu, mala, or guna, or assessment of the Mahabhuta should be done of the medicines, category of medicines like in Swarasa, in Vata, in Kalka. Suppose in Swarasa and Churna, difference. In Churna, suppose we are taking Guduchi Churna, and we are giving Guduchi Swaras. In Churna, we are making it crush. So all the component of the Guduchi, means Guduchi is having rasa, asti, majja also there. So we are giving whole medicines. In Churna, whole medicine we are giving. But in Swarasa, we used to squeeze, take the rasas out, and we throw the mamsa and asti part of the Guduchi. So now what we are giving is rasa form. Asti Majja we are not giving. So according to the need of the body, according to the need of the dhatu depletion or dhatu vriddhi, according to the Agni, according to the need of the Mahabhuta, we have to prescribe the medicine in that format so that we can provide that specific Mahabhuta to those patients. So this is also we can be done. And in the Sodhan also, see in the Sodhan process, what is coming out from the Sodhan, first Purusha Pravitti, then Ambu, first Kshiti is coming out, then Ambu, then Pittandoma, Pitya, then Kaphanta Virechanam, Kapha is also coming out, then also Vayu, last. So Akash is all pervading, so all Mahabhut, we are considering what is coming out. So each and every context, we are assessing the Mahabhuta component only. So Mahabhut is Sarvatanta Siddhanta and everywhere it is applicable. Tad mayani eva bhutani tad gunani eva cha adiset taischa tad lakshanam Krishna bhutogram vajante. In all bhutogram of the cosmos, everywhere Mahabhut is all pervading. So bhuta in the embryological development also. So there is certain characters which is developed from certain Mahabhuta in the body. Like Antariksha, from the Antariksha, Sabda Indriya, Sarva Chitra Samoha, Viviktatacha. Vayu, Vastu, Sparsha, Sparsanindriya, Sarva Cheshta Samoha, Sarva Sarita Spandanam, Lavutacha. Tejasastu, Rupam, Rupendriya, Varna Santava. So each and every Mahabhuta is dominant in one Indriya. Also, along with the certain characteristic feature of the human body is developed due to the influence, the dominant influence of certain Mahabhuta. So if that function is depleted in the body or exaggerated in the body, we have to assess this kind of this Mahabhuta is getting deranged in any form, either in excessive form or any depleted form, and accordingly we have to design the treatment, and treatment process should be enforced according to the assessment of the Mahabhuta of that specific conditions. And provided you have to assess the Dhatagni condition also. So in the embryological development of this is importance of the Bhuta. And this in the research also this angle can be taken in a proper way. And even in the Mahabhuta and Trigun, in the Trigun also there is pervading of Mahabhuta. Sattva Bahula Mahakasam, Raja Bahula Vayu, Sattva Raja Bahula Agni, and Sattva Bahula Apo. There is mutual conglomerations. So in the development of Mahabhuta, there is Trigun, which is doing the functions for development of these things. Then as a body as a whole, our body for the assessment of Sadadhatuja Purush, Asmin Sastre Panchmahabhuta Sariri Samvaya Purusha. So body is total body, that is Bhuta Sarira, is developed on the basis of Panchmahabhuta and added with the Sariri, that is Atma, which is called our Chikitsa Purush. So in our Chikitsa Purush, what we are considering as a Purusha, their total body as a whole is made up of Mahabhuta. So entire assessment is done on the basis of Mahabhuta. Coming to the next point, that is principle of Anukta Drabya Nirnaya, that I have discussed previously, that if there is a plant, mineral or animal origin medicines of which we are not able to have the informations that what is the rasa, what is the functions, in that conditions, what are the tools? In those tools, one tool is assessment of Mahabhuta. Dhanneshu Mangseshu Phalesu Chaiva Sakeshu Cha Anuktam Iha Prameyat. Prameya for the assessment, Prameya. Before Praman, Prameya. Aswadato Bhuta Gunaischa Matya, Bhuta Gunaischa Matya. Adi said Drabyam Analpa Buddhi. So for assessment of Anukta Drabya, first stage is to assess asadana of the bhuta gana. So it is also you can apply in the research context. That is the application of the Mahabhuta principle is implemented in Muttu. And for the deciding of the vipak, deciding vipak as per the bhuta. Vipak, Kotu vipak and Madhur vipak. For this Madhur vipak and Kotu vipak, Susruta says, again here deciding factor is Mahabhuta. Dravyeshu Pachamaneshu ye ambu jeshu ambu guna prithvi guna nirvatante adhikastatra pako madhura uchyate. According to the dominance, Madhur vipak will be the resultant. And if there is a Pachamaneshu Teja Anila Akasa Gunaha, in that condition, Tatra Kotuko Paka Uchate, there will be Kotu Vipak. So as per the Vipak, we can also change according to the need. Last one of the importance of understanding Bhuta in the perspective that Drabbameva Rasadinam Sreshta Tehi Tadasraya Panchabhutadamkam Tattu Kshamadishtaya. Everything what we are consuming is of Panchmahabhuta, and we are also Panchmahabhuta, made up of Panchmahabhuta. In that conditions, we have to assess the Mahabhuta in all the conditions. Okay. And this is also not occur without the alteration of the Mahabhuta. Tasmad na eka rasa dravyam bhuta sanghata sambhavat na eka dosastatra rogastatra. So according to the Ashtanga Hridaya, understanding of the disease also require the assessment of Bhuta and the everything. So Bhuta principles is most important principles of understanding Ayurveda and conducting research. Coming to the next point, that is Loka Purusha Samya. In the Loka Purusha, it has two different facets, and the Loka Purusha Samya is described in two different contexts, two different chapters of literature of Rajasthan. In the previous chapter, that is a Loka Purusha is described according to the as per the need of simile of the Mahabhuta. That already I have discussed. The what is the need of assessment of Mahabhuta for treatment, that already discussed. So the initial chapter, that is fourth chapter, Loka Purusha is discussed as per the need of Mahabhuta. Next, Loka Purusha Samya, there is two different need. One is to get absolute getting rid of the pain and suffering. That is the need of study Loka Purusha. Why in a medical text Loka Purusha is described? Now, absolute get rid of pain. Pain appears from the birth. Start crying. From the birth up to the death, there is different form of pains. And for getting rid of pain and suffering, understanding Loka Purusha is needed. That is the purpose. And another purpose is bliss, for happiness, that I am the alone, there is no attachment, and there is we are neither, that is Sivoham, bliss, and goal either is also liberation, moksha. That is the Loka Purusha, need of the Loka Purusha. I will not detail the Loka Purusha. I will focus on this point only. The Loka Purusha study is needed for what? Needed for advancement of spiritual well-being. Like we have three different state of conditions. One is, first condition is called Jagrata Avastha. That is where the Mana, Indriya, Buddhi is working and we are perceiving something, we consume something, and according to our intellect, we are reacting. Next one is condition is called Swapna Avastha. In the Swapna Avastha, what we are thinking, that we are dreaming something, we are seeing something happening, and in that condition, our Indriya is not working, Buddhi is also sleeping. So in that conditions, we are visualizing a world which is made up of only mind, and in that condition, you always sometimes remain happy in the bliss conditions. The third condition also, there is a third condition that is called susupti avastha. In susupti avastha, jagrata, swapna, and susupti. In the susupti avastha, there is a conditions where the mind is also sleeping. That condition only everything is sleep. There is no perception from the outer world. There is no communication to the inner world. But again, in the after waking up, people think that my sleep is good or not, and I slept well or I did not sleep well. So in these three stages, there are different kinds of experience. In the Jagrata Avastha, there is greediness, there is kama, krodh, loho, moho, matsarya. In sleeping condition, there is some kind of parthito, ityadi, swapna. And in the susupti avastha, there is absolute silence of the experience, absolute silence. There is experience, that is experience of the absence. And then after all are the experience of certain things. The fourth avastha, that is called turiya avastha. So assessment of the Loka Purusha is meant for what? Meant for what? We have to uplift our level in such a condition that we can think that these, the example what I am giving, I have just given, that is the human being are not confined in the first condition, that is Jagrata. What we are seeing in the Jagrata Avastha, that is not absolutely true. What we used to see in the Swapna, that is also not true. And in the Susupti Avastha, these are the conditions of the Turiya Avastha. Means Turiya, that is the Atma. These are the stages of Atma, phases of Atma. When Atma is associated with these Indriyas and in Buddhi is working, that time it is called Jagrata Avastha. When we are in the sleeping, that Atma is associated on the mind, there is no Buddhi and Indriya. And when there is no functional Antakaran, that is there is no Buddhi working, no Indriya and no Manas. Only one, and he is experienced that I slept well. That means to uplift your spiritual well-being, these Loka Purusha Avastha is mentioned. Here Loka Purusha conditions is experience telling is that there is operation kya Loka Avayava. Whatever the body structure and tissues are there, that is also present in the cosmos. And everything is, we are the miniature of the cosmos. And what is happening in the cosmos, that is also happening with our body. And whenever we can understand everything, and when we can think that we are the part and parcel of the universe, then only we will be happy. That is the major mean of discussion of this Loka Purusha. Lokasya Taruna Trina Pashu Adi Rupa Avayavaha. In the Lok, there is a toru, there is a tree and grass and the animals. Avayava Tatha Purusha. In the Purusha also, Snayu, Kandara, Dhavanadi, Avayava, Aparishankya. There is similar Avayava is there in our body. Tena Kasnam Avidhanam Asakyam. So that is cannot be described in a whole. That is why certain major portions we are describing. Ato yeje Loka Purusha ho sthula avayava tete samanna pratipadanam uttante iti vakyartha. And Chakrapani says it is for very important for what? For assessment of the spiritual well-being, adhyatmika. And so in the Loka Purusha, that is our need. Next, coming to the last point. In Samanya Vishesh, Samanya Vishesh is the most major and most common point of discussion in research. There are definitions of Samanya Vishesh. I am not going in that way. I am just going that assessment of Samanya Vishesh is done in the clinical practice, and research is whether it is done or not. Disease occur due to the depletion of any dhatu or vriddhi or kshaya of any dhatu. And in that condition, what we used to give is assessment is also done on the basis of samanya vishesh of certain gun or samanya vishesh of dhatu, etc. And the medicines and food what we use to prescribe, that is also on the basis of this. Dhatava punah sarira samana gunavishtayapi aharai vikarai abhyasamanai vriddhim apnuvanti. So vriddhi and kshay process, in the vriddhi and kshay process, we use the samanya vishesha principle, understanding and for the treatment also. Rasam tu viparita gunaihi viparita gunavishtai api aharai abhyasamanai. And ras is also assessed by this, and also treatment also given by this. And how it is assessed? Now there are three different angles. One is guna, karma, and dravya. So samanya vishesha occurs in the three level. One is guna level, another is dravya samannam, guna samannam, karma samannam. In karma samanya, we will discuss later on. In guna samanya and dravya samanya, there are two different conditions. One is sajatiya assessment, another is bijatiya. In bijatiya, there are certain examples are in guna. You see, teshu ye gurava ste gurubhi ahara vikara gunai abhyasamana appayante lagavasya hasantihi. Among gunaha, te guravaha, the guna which a guru, that guru ahara vikara abhyasamana, consuming of guru ahara vihar in a regular basis, abhyasamanaihi appayante, that gets nourished, and lagavasya hasanti, and lahu get depleted. Similarly, lagavastu lagubhi ahara appayante, in lagu gunadi gunaha, lagu aharadi, by the consumption of lagu ahar, appayan, there it gets nourished, and gurava hasanti, and application of guru actually reduces the lagutva. So samanya vishes both guna level, it is described like this. Evam evad sarvadhatu gunanam samanya yogar vriddhi viparjayat hasa. So treatment and research cannot be done without the assessment of samanya vishes, because each and every actions manifests or cessation of actions occur due to the infection, due to the effect of samanya vishes. So samanya vishes assessment is needed for assessment of cause and effect, mainly effect and assimilation of the cause. So in Dravya directly, we can directly give Tasmat mamsam appayate mamsena bhuyastaram anyabhya. Mamsa usually causes nourishment to the mamsa in compared to the other foods, other as bhuyastaram anyabhya, sarida dhatubhya. And mamsa in compared to the nourishment to the other dhatu, it gives maximum nourishment to the mamsa. तथा लहितम लहितेन मेदो मेदसा वसा वसया अस्ति तरुणस्थाम मज्जा मज्जा शुक्रम शुक्रेन गर्वस्तु आम गर्वेन. So this is the predominant nourishment through the samanya principles. Then similarly, in Bijati also, like in Kshay, you can see in Dravya, Sukra Kshaya Kshira Sarpipa Yogaha, Madhura Snigdha Shita Samakyatanam Chaparesham Dravyanam, Mutra Kshaya. In Mutra Kshaya, you can give Punarikshu Varuni Manda Drava Madhura Amla Lavana, Kledinam. So in Bijatiya Dravya, you see that is in Sajatiya Dravya, we are giving nourishment by nourishment of mamsa by mamsa, sajatiya dravya. And in bijatiya dravya, in sukra kshaya kshira sarpi yoga, we are giving, and mutra kshaya, not giving mutra, we are giving ikshu varuni mandaha. So vijatiya dravya we can apply also in samanya vishes also, we can apply vijatiya dravya also. So in Bijatiya Trevi, so that assessment we can apply the clinical practice and in the research. In karma also, karma api yad asya dhatu vriddhikaram tad tad asadhyam. In dhatu vriddhikara also, the karma like abhyanga and other things, karma, other karma which you can adopt the karma by for the dhatu vriddhi and dhatu has also. In similarly, karma also you can assess. So next point. So in conclusion, in basic doctrine, Panchmahabhuta body part assessment also you can done through Panchmahabhuta. In Sodhana Karma also we have Panchmahabhuta influence. Various actions by bodily explained by Upachaya Samghanan. In Bhumi Pariksha also we can apply the Sodhana Karma, Panchmahabhuta principles. And dosha Siddhanta and dosha Upakrama Siddhanta, everywhere we can assess the Samana Vishesh Siddhanta and the Mahabhuta Siddhanta. Everywhere, dosha Siddhanta and Dhatu Posana Siddhanta, everywhere these two principles is needed. So in conclusion, as it is understanding of the principle based on Shastra is the first step. Next one is Mahabhut should be assessed as a different level, body as a whole unit to its avayava. That already discussed. Ultimate of Loka Purusha is Loka Purusha Shama is liberations. So before that, it is the advancements of spiritual well-being. In Samanya Vishesh, for the treatment purpose, should be analyzed on the basis of Sajati and Vijatiyatva. That already I have discussed. So I have completed my topic. Now, if you have any question, you can ask, or thank you, organizer, for providing me the opportunity to share something. Thank you, Sarika ji. Thank you, Yadav ji, and the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable insights and guiding students through the literary research ideas. Thank you very much, sir. All the participants are requested to ask for their queries. They can put their queries in the chat box or can message and can raise your hands also.